Oh, hey everybody! Welcome to the paint stream. You get a double whammy of painting goodness today because I'm joined by fellow painter Sean Twitty.
Hello.
So I am continuing my work on Modoc. I've worked on him a little bit since you guys seen him last. I've knocked out his teeth, like not like
So to
knock
speak.
them out. Yeah, but finished them. And I started dropping some base coats in on the hair and the purple parts of his armor. Now, one thing that drives me up the wall is I used contrast doing that part, and unfortunately, with light contrast, it is very likely to chip.
Really? Is that a problem?
Yeah, like it just doesn't have like a lot of hold on a model when you put it on, but like it's not terrible for a base, especially like one that I know I'm going to go over. I just needed to get the darker colors like in before I started
I guess it'd probably be better on plastic models, stuff that doesn't have as much chip.
I mean, Modoc's a plastic model and it's still kind of like chipped
He's heavy.
a fair bit. I was also, I mean, I'll be honest, I was a little on the rough side, so joke's on me. I guess.
I
And-
mean,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I can hold your own stuff. Sean's working on more Crimson Fists. So Sean's Greek tragedy of commission work is the whole every time he's about to finish David's commission, David just throws more at him.
it's the Hercules, the Trials of Hercules.
Yeah, just never-ending challenges.
Oh, you've defeated the Nemean lion? How about the Nemean giraffe?
But we all do the work that keeps us busy and that we at least enjoy to some, like modicum.
I've gotten back into enjoying painting again. It's great.
Yeah, which is like a really important thing. I have a lot of people that ask or talk about like motivation, and I think we all have issues with it, but my personal stance is always more or less the same, which is if it needs to get done, you have to do it. And it's not fun, and it's probably not what a lot of people want to hear. Like, they want to hear, like, what inspires you. Dinosaurs inspire me, but I paint a lot of things that aren't dinosaurs. And it's just part of it, It's part of being a professional.
Well, that's when I'm not painting right now. I've been drawing bugs because that's currently my thing I like doing.
Yeah.
I put on my humbugs for the subject.
Yeah. And I mean, like, we all have that, the thing that we gravitate towards or, find fun to do.
Or obsessive.
Yeah, or obsess over. You could probably call me obsessive.
I don't want to meet a person who's not obsessive about dinosaurs.
Yeah. Truth. But yeah, it's just one of those things where if you're doing it for fun, then do what's fun to you and don't be afraid to change it up. Don't be afraid of being accused of like being an army hopper or whatever, because at the end of the day, your hobbies are for you and your enjoyment, not for your friends.
So while those Crimson Fists are drawing, I'm working on some of my own stuff. Actually, I'm working on
Ooh.
some guys for Saga.
Nice. What army are you working for Saga right now?
These guys I'm painting up are Baltic pagans.
Ooh.
So like Estonians or Latvians or something like that region of the world.
Nice.
About 1,200 or so.
And it's important to note, Sean means the historical saga, not the fantasy saga.
Yeah.
Because there's two.
And because I can't pick a time period, I'm also painting some late Romans. Some late Western Romans. So.
I was actually watching a like a short series last night on medieval food, or I guess the difference between a knight's cuisine and a like a peasant's or a serf or whatever,
Right.
and how basically knights had a much worse diet than the lower class, um, because of the medicine at the time being based around the four humors.
Yeah. Well, also, stuff that was seen as peasant food was actually the healthy stuff.
Yeah,
It's like, I,
yeah, like peasants got to eat fresh fish and greens and all that, where knights was mostly
mostly meat.
yeah, mostly meat, lots of spices, and apparently like lots of sweet stuff too, which
Yep.
I didn't think about, but
I don't know that. Well, once ginger got over to Europe, they went crazy.
yeah, yeah, because they were talking a lot about like how the spices related to the four humors in different ways and all that sort of good stuff.
When black pepper got to Europe, it changed cuisine. It's just
Yeah.
like suddenly, hey, food tastes good now.
Yeah, so like they talked a lot about that, and apparently at the time period that they were discussing about, more or less all of the like nightly food tasted like Christmas.
It's all sage.
Well, no, because they were like really focused on like cloves and
Oh, there you go.
ginger and
Yeah,
like things close to the cinnamon family.
Right. Well, it's better than what it tasted like before.
Right. Which I mean, like, just would have been people who eat that like raw diet stuff. Like, I think that's fine every once in a while, but maybe not an entire lifestyle of cuisine.
But there's a book I read. It was Medieval Life, actually by Terry Jones, from Python. Because after Python, he's pretty much a historian now, and it's about the realities of medieval peasantry and how they would have lived. And it's a pretty interesting book.
Yeah, that sounds pretty cool. But yeah, so I am working on Modoc's Big Dome, still completing my comic book style Modoc, and which I am taking Dryad Bark and Beast Hide to kind of harshly layer up his mop top before I come in and start blacklining it.
Now, are you changing your painting style, or is it same painting style, just with that color scheme?
Oh, I am changing my painting style. I'm doing much more and not focusing on blending nearly as much.
So much harsher.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Trying to stick to that.
And they sculpted him very Kirby-esque, so I guess I can
Yeah,
stick with that color scheme too.
yeah. Like that's I guess my goal overall is to really kind of capture that comic book feel through careful application of highlights, layers, and using almost black lines. They would be considered like a knockout effect in like mainstream comics, where I'm not using true black for the lines, but using something that's kind of close to the black.
Right. Really dark blue or really dark brown.
Yeah, for the hair, it'll definitely be really dark brown. Like I'll be mixing in black with this like Dryad Bark,
Okay.
just as a way to,
What about the smoke?
the smoke. I'm probably going to 100% knockout. Like probably use a lighter gray or something on that note. But I'm using the Dryad Bark because unfortunately the contrast paint got a little splotchy on the hair, so. And I'm also using it to kind of like cut into some of the cracks and crevices on the top of the head a little bit, just to give the hair part a little bit more a little bit more definition before I come in with that black line. But yeah, I've really enjoyed these Crisis Protocol figures. I find them to be a whole heck of a lot of fun to paint.
They're nice sculpts too.
Yeah.
For plastic.
Yeah. And I was just talking to Sean right before the stream started. The guys who make this game are at PAX this weekend, PAX Unplug, showing off the next wave of figures. And we have new terrain in the space terrain, or more or less like nowhere is what I believe the thought was going to be, which is the big space station city from the Guardians of the Galaxy movie, the first one, that is. And then new characters finishing out the Black Order, which is Thanos's like henchmen and such. And then also starting to add in more of the Guardians, and getting to round out the Avengers with Hawkeye showing up. Just all kind of cool. All right, so I basically got his hair done except for the spot highlights and the black line. So,
Well, here's a question. Like, which sculpt are they going for Hawkeye?
it is so basically new comics based. So it's the sunglass wearing.
So the Matt Fraction version.
Yeah, but it is not the like Jeremy Renner version.
Right. I guess the Matt Fraction version definitely was influenced by the Jeremy Renner version.
Correct. Yeah. And like that's the thing that I talk about a lot with people, especially in regards to the Crisis Protocol stuff, is that art will the movies imitate the comics, and then the comics then imitate the movies. So it's a constant kind of.
Apologize for interrupting. John wanted to let you know we'll be doing a phone enrollment tomorrow.
Okay.
I will be on site here tomorrow afternoon to when.
Just Hawkeye, or do we have the other Hawkeye?
The younger one, the Kate Bishop. I don't not in that wave of expansions, but I'm almost positive she'll be out sooner than later.
Over time.
Yeah, especially since that's the basis of the new Hawkeye series coming to Disney Plus.
Right.
So I would expect to see Kate Bishop and then also maybe Ronan come out at some point.
Oh yeah. Okay. I mean, certainly an advantage to the miniature game is Marvel has a roster of thousands of characters they can bring out.
Yeah.
Like, do you want to play the B team? Oh yeah, we can play the C team.
Yeah. One of our friends here keeps trying to get the Gibbon into the game.
How about Vermin? How about him?
Yeah. I mean, I keep trying to push for Sauron into Crisis Protocol, and I'll get him one day.
You'll get him.
But like on a long enough timeline, we should see most of the prominent characters in the Marvel universe. But I understand them focusing on the movies first because hey, that's what the widest audience knows.
Right. Understood.
And you know, a lot of the comic book fans really want the X-Men, but also at the same point, I can tell you that at least right now, globally, I feel like the Avengers are definitely going to be more popular. And, that's just something that is the current reality.
Right.
So, doing this black lining, I have a mix of Dryad Bark and Abaddon Black. And what I am doing is finding the deepest recesses I can find and making sure my paint is nice and thin and dabbing where I would like the line to start and then patiently pulling the paint down with the drag. And this is important whenever you're doing like either pin lining or washing. Basically, even freehanding is wherever you start your brush, it will be very beneficial if you start it to where you want it to be the lightest and then you pull down from there into where you want it to be the heaviest. The thinner the paint is, the more value you will get out of that particular technique. So, making sure everything has a nice edge, definition is met.
Any questions or anything?
No, just people watching. Oh, Patrick says MODOK looks great. Thank you, Patrick.
Yay.
I would like to get MODOK done before the release of the next wave, which is going to be the Wakandans and Venom. Venom, I'm looking forward to a lot, doing like the comic book painting style, because he'll be majoritively black, but I get to use the kind of like a sharp blue highlight for him.
Yeah, there was a really strong highlight. If he's sculpted
Yeah.
like that, he's gonna be all like, veiny and.
Yeah.
Now, like you mentioned the X-Men, that definitely would get me into the game. Would be just give me the classic Claremont era X-Men.
Yeah.
I'd have a lot of fun with that.
And so I feel like that's something that they're going to work towards. And depending on one of the things that kind of was cool to see was that there's a new Black Widow coming out. Black Widow is currently in the starter box. And so it would be interesting to see another starter box come out later on, like when maybe all the Avengers are released separately. And it could be, X-Men versus Brotherhood or,
Right.
something like that.
That sounds good. X-Men versus the Freedom Force.
X-Men versus X-Force.
So just X-Men.
Shh.
One of those like, how dumb is the public in Marvel? Pretty dumb.
Yeah.
These guys who have the exact same powers and abilities as the old X-Men show up. Call themselves the X-Factor. Whatever.
Carry on.
I hope that the guy with the laser eyes goes after Cyclops next.
So yeah, the hair is one of the one of the features on MODOK I worry about the most, simply because it is probably what a lot of people are going to be seeing most of the time.
Right, this big old dome.
Yeah. And so I'm doing my best to really kind of hopefully push that comic book style. And I feel like it might take an additional highlight pass or so, really get that sheen on his hair, and maybe kind of cross hatch or just hatch it in to really make that effect. But I can tell you for certain that if you haven't had a chance to paint one of these Crisis Protocol models, give it a shot. Do something different. It's almost like they're designed for it.
Now are they individuals blisters yet, or is it just
Um,
so far?
No. There's a couple individual characters, MODOK being one of them. Hulk is the other
I
one.
know they, yeah, I know they're the big guys.
But yeah, next, not this week, but next week, we should see the Wakandans come out.
Okay.
And it'll be Venom in a single pack. It'll be Shuri and Okoye to cut together, and then Killmonger and Black Panther together.
Okay.
So it's kind of cool. And I think that's the way to, like, hopefully make people value their purchase a little more, and then also for us as a retailer, not lead to tremendous SKU bloat by combining those characters together. I can tell you, or maybe not me, maybe you can ask Nasha, but shelf space is sacred here. And so something that cuts down on shelf space, like these character double packs, definitely
So
helps.
there's a full size pack for one model.
Yeah. It's like we understand that they're not going to be able to do that with like every character, but combining like, you know, two characters into an expansion is pretty rad. At least from this store operator's point of view.
Hear that, folks? It's pretty rad.
Yeah. And I'd like to hope that people will think this MODOK's pretty rad once he's done.
Well,
As
see him
a-
in person, he's really good.
As he whips a chair at people with his mind. But yeah, if you have any questions for me or Sean while we're working, we are here for you.
Now, I do want to. I'm not sure when that could be, but I would like to do a painting class sometime in January.
Yeah,
So,
just let me know when it is, what you'd like to do, materials you'd like to have, or things you'd like to have included in the entry fee. And I'll be happy to set it up.
well, certainly there's always the idea like, well, every time I run them, I get people who are like, this is the first time, so I can't get too advanced because this is the first time they're painting.
Yeah.
I know that there are people who don't need beginning stuff and want to get advanced, but I can't guarantee those people will show up to a painting class. So it's hard to say. It's hard to
Yeah.
gauge. I have done like in the past. I have done like advanced classes, and they got some interest, but it's hard.
Yeah. Alright. Let's do some hard highlights.
So John, tell me how are your Bone Reapers coming?
Good. I am basically, I think it was this weekend, I wrapped up at least the assembly of like 1,700 points.
Oh boy.
And the thing is, like, the paint scheme I've designed or chosen for them is batch paintable. So I would like to try to paint the whole army in basically steps. Like, that would be my ideal for them.
Right. So which one did you go with?
The color scheme?
Yeah.
Jade armor, brown bones, darkened, like almost blackened, like extremities, with typical bone-colored heads. So it's a take on the Petrifex, but I went more of a brown bone than their like kind of gray.
That's right. Yours are the one. That's the ones that are like they're stone now. They're fossils. Right?
Yes. Yeah, so I wanted to do that kind of like Smithsonian fossil color where it's like mostly brown instead of the kind of like stone color the studio team did.
Right. That nice sandstone color.
Because we got one in.
Yeah, and I remember that one being crossed. And with all things doing a reflective highlight.
So the Crimson Fist, they're kind of a return to form, but I haven't really painted them in a while. But I've been working on Resistance Army for Drop Zone Commander.
Oh yeah.
Boy, those paint fast. I love how fast 10
Yeah.
millimeter models paint.
Small scale is definitely you know, like once again it challenges you in different ways, but you can definitely make quick work of it through like a lot of like fun techniques, right?
Well, base coats, quick dry brush washes, followed by another dry brush is a great way to just like knock them out. When it's so small scale, even just a little bit of dry brush makes them explode.
Yeah.
Also, there's certain freedom of like, oh, it's 10 millimeter. I don't have to paint the guys.
Yeah, you
Or I
don't.
don't have to paint. I don't have to paint belt buckles. Now, I will paint belt buckles on 15 millimeters. That's just the way I am. But 10, okay. I'm willing to step.
10, yeah. Don't be ridiculous.
Be too ridiculous. But I like painting 15s, so. I seem to be the only person who likes painting 15s around here.
Well, I don't think it's that people don't like painting it. It's just that there's not currently a popular game system for it.
Well, that's another one of the ones I've been trying to get people to play. But
Yeah.
well, actually, I guess there are a couple game systems that people play around here, but they're in the wrong era for me. I'm not a big. I don't care to. I don't really care much for like Napoleonic or like Civil War era.
Oh, gotcha.
I mean, there's a couple of games like that, and there's Command Decision.
What era is that in?
That's World War II.
Oh, okay.
That's one that gets. Wait, am I getting the right game name? But it's one that they play over here a lot on Saturday.
Yeah, I am not much of a World War II guy.
Oh, I like that too, but I haven't played that. I haven't played like Field of War. Flames of War in a while. That is another game that was fun. 15 millimeter. Looks like we have a visitor.
Oh, hey.
Oh, hi. Look at that handsome man.
Yeah, I know. He's just like, yeah. So, final spot highlight on the noggin.
Oh, wow, you did great on his face.
Oh,
All
thanks.
those wrinkles. Nice sculpt. They really like brought out all the scowl.
Yeah.
I hate everything.
I can't wait for him to hopefully get a cartoon show.
Just MODOK?
Yeah, supposedly there's a MODOK show in the works. And it's supposed to be with, I think, Patton Oswalt as MODOK,
Okay.
who I couldn't imagine to be, like, who else could be a good MODOK?
Has MODOK gone through some changes in the comics where you could actually make a show about him? He's a bad guy.
Yeah. But what if it's an office-style comedy where MODOK is the because MODOK's the head of AIM.
Right.
So imagine a show just in a super secret villain organization where you have to deal with like MODOK's whims.
So it's AIM as Dunder Mifflin.
Yeah. I guess Steve Carell could make a good MODOK, but then the comparison would be,
That'd be too obvious.
yeah.
It's a little on the nose there. Yeah. I guess the certain weirdness of your boss is a floating head in a chair
Yeah.
with the power to destroy you with his mind.
Imbeciles! The world is but a plaything to MODOK.
And you didn't fill out your expense reports.
Yeah.
Of course, then now we're veering into like Venture Brothers territory.
Right. But, Venture Brothers
No, I mean that's fine.
has done its course, like, I feel like there's room.
Well, what I'm saying is that it's like okay, so we have a precedent. People will buy it.
Yeah.
So, Sky in progress.
Oh. Check out this dapper gentleman.
That's one of the Baltic pagans.
Oh. Yeah.
Have to do his shield.
Oh, yeah.
Shield's last. So I gotta decide which one it is. Yeah, if I paint when I get around to painting Marvel stuff, I'll have to ramp my style to be brighter than it usually is.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the things I love about it, is that I can be so bright and colorful with it.
Man, I sure could do a Spider-Man, but it would be like mid-90s Spider-Man, a little too dark.
Yeah.
I'd have to really ramp it up.
Oh. I was going to say, Beaten Purple from Privateer Press. A nice, super saturated purple.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons why I did the base coat in the initial contrast is, as much as I love this Beaten Purple color from P3, it does not have great coverage. So doing something that's kind of close to it,
Some of the P3s are a little thin.
yeah. Anything that kind of, this like maroon magenta, I guess, scale of things has a difficulty coating sometimes.
There reminds me of people ask me like which paint line is best, and I was like, well, I really can't answer that because
Yeah.
certain colors have certain effects. I'll use like a blue from one company and a purple from another because like this blue has this effect when I use it,
Yeah.
and I wouldn't use it for this other effect because it's like too thin or it looks like semi-gloss and it doesn't work right. And some of the P3 colors are great for coverage, but I wouldn't necessarily use them for like clothing. 'Cause
Right.
There's a certain semi-gloss to it, so it makes the clothes look a little too shiny. And like I'll use some GWs, but some of the GWs are a little too thin or a little too thick.
Ain't that the truth?
So like P3's black actually is really good for writing with.
Yes, I love using P3's black for, like, that's what I prefer to use for black lining and all that for these guys,
Right,
but
it's thin. It's good and thin, but it's still opaque.
yeah.
Whereas like GW's Abaddon Black is a little just too chunky, a little too thin.
Yeah.
It's great for. I use it. I use it for base coats and details. But if I need black lining, I'll actually turn to either P3 or even good old Craftsmart paint.
Ooh.
But I like the Craftsmart because it is it's thin and it dries matte. You just great for blacklighting,
Yeah.
so it doesn't draw attention to itself. Okay, these guys are. Now comes the next step on these Space Marines. I gotta do the wash.
Oh, the wash.
My method for painting Crimson Fist is over black, I do a base coat of the Cantor blue. But then when that's done, I wash them with Nuln Oil, which gives a nice shade to the blue and also gives me an idea where the highlights are.
Yeah.
'Cause otherwise, blue is a self highlighter and a self shader, but it can also be very flat without proper shades and highlights. So the wash gives it that depth that it loses by virtue of being blue.
Yeah.
These guys have so many angles, so much stuff going on. These are the aggressors, and they're just covered in extra plating and wires, and I don't even know what. But it also means that there's so many angles to watch out for when you're painting.
Just doodads for days.
Oh yeah, plus there's all like icons and things that they're wearing. So heavy armor, and then he's still carrying a relic around his belt, and he might have a cross around his neck, which is wonderfully ludicrous on a giant battle suit, and yet he still has like stuff, extremely fragile stuff hanging off the front of it.
Yeah.
You know the first round of enemy fire is just going to blow that stuff right off. One more thing to have vengeance for. Right?
Exactly.
You shot my purity seal. Destroying.
Yeah, I'm always curious what purity seals are made of.
I mean,
Like, I feel like it's got to be something harder than your.
wax and parchment.
Yeah.
I think sometimes it's been described as that they're like it's like a metal cast of a wax parchment.
Oh, okay.
So it's like it's a like chunk of metal that's been like welded to the armor or stuck in some fashion. In theory, the parchment, quote unquote, might be like aluminum plating or something.
Yeah. So a lot of this purple step for MODOK is going to be getting a nice clean layer on top of the contrast paint with this beaten purple from P3. And so it's all good in terms of like coverage and such. It just takes a little bit more time.
Well, he's a character.
Yeah.
He's a singular big model. You can take your time on it.
Absolutely.
It's the fun with like big models.
Yeah.
It's a problem when you have to do that for 40 models.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I really enjoy, I guess, about Crisis Protocol is that I highly enjoy painting characters. And this game is just characters.
Right.
And it's like, at most, I'll need 10. I mean, I'll probably pick up more than 10, but like, I can focus on painting my favorite 10. Like, I know Dr. Octopus and the newly announced Green Goblin are going to be on my dream team with MODOK. I'm going to hopefully build up a Sinister Six as they release more models. Not that MODOK was ever on the Sinister Six, but he could be.
I guess that's a definite difference between like DC villains and Marvel villains. Marvel villains tend to have goons.
Yeah.
They tend to be the goons, but they're MODOK doesn't have other than like AIM agents or like Hydra agents.
Yeah.
But the Lizard doesn't roll up to a bank with his posse like Joker does.
Correct.
Or Penguin with his guys, or Riddler with his guys. They tend to be fairly self-sufficient, or it's an entire gang of supervillains.
Yeah, it's always funny, or someone, I guess, posed this question of why do Spider-Man villains tend to be amazing in terms of either like physical prowess or intelligence, but then always decide to rob banks?
Yeah, that's the classic supervillain problem of you've invented an anti-gravity disc and a psionic helmet. You're gonna rob banks with that?
Yeah, it's like you're not going to patent that,
Yeah,
and
why don't you just sell your psionic helmets in your antiquity disc.
like I get, villains with like a goal. Like Magneto was just like, I ain't waiting around for civil rights. It's like I've been here before. Or even someone like the Lizard, who's like, all right, well, my mind has been altered by this transformation, and now I want everyone else to go through it and become lizards. I was like, okay, that's motivation. I can see that.
Right.
I mean, it may not be great. I mean, like, that's what I would do, but,
Well, that was a. I know that was kind of the falling out the original Thunderbolts, because once they were revealed that they were doing their best to pretend they were superheroes,
yeah.
because Zemo had his grand plan to rule the world, and Moonstone's like, why do we need to rule the world? Everyone loves us. We're the Thunderbolts.
Yeah.
He's like, what do you mean? It's like, yeah, we don't have to be bad guys.
Yeah.
We're rich. Everyone loves us. People love us more than the Avengers.
Yeah.
But like Zemo's like, no, I must have my agenda, and I'm going to rule the world. Like, okay, fine. That's why in the comics, eventually Moonstone like betrays him. It's like, you know what? I don't want to rule the world.
Yeah.
I like being rich.
I like being popular and rich.
Right.
We did it, guys. By trying to be illegitimate, we got there through legitimate means.
Right.
It's like, okay.
Classic, I faked my way into my job. Turns out I'm kind of good at my job.
Yeah. Yeah, because like some people turned, especially in the Marvel comics, like they're villains of circumstance. Like they happen to be at the wrong place at the wrong time, and like, or they needed quick cash and like became petty criminals. And I feel like once you're branded a supervillain, it's kind of hard to like get that stigma off.
I mean, more than a few characters turn good and turn bad and back and forth. And
Yeah, I always loved the series where the Juggernaut became good. Did you read that one?
I know about it. I remember that.
Okay, so basically, during one of the fights, one of the good guys, in quotation marks, gets the bright idea. They're like, well, we can't stop the Juggernaut. It's literally his name. So let's just take him out of the picture for a bit, and they just drop him in the middle of the ocean. It's
Sure, why not?
yeah. Well, and basically, like, I think in the 3 to 6 months it takes him to walk back to New York, he meets a young mutant boy named Sammy, who's basically a fish boy, and like through befriending him, he decides to be good for Sammy.
Okay.
And he becomes good for a while, and like I really like that redemption arc, because like no one believes the Juggernaut's going to be a good guy, because he's spent his entire life giving swirlies to Professor X.
I mean, the guy who casually walks through the wall of the bank every few weeks.
Yeah. But I always like reading those comics. Juggernaut's one of my favorites. I hope if they get to the mutants, they put him in too.
Oh god, he'll be fun.
Yeah. Especially if they did Colossus and Juggernaut in the same kind of set.
Right.
Have your big bruisers constantly fighting against each other.
It's like my dream team. I want Colossus, Nightcrawler, Wolverine,
Yeah.
and Storm, and Kitty Pryde.
Yes. Now, do you want Kitty Pryde with Lockjaw? Or without Lockjaw?
Lockheed?
Yes, excuse me.
I don't know. It's like, do I want pre-Brood era? Then I'd have to have Cyclops too. I'm not sure if I want Cyclops.
I always remember the like late 80s cartoon where like they gave Wolverine an Australian accent for some reason.
It's terrible.
But like that was really my first introduction to the X-Men, and so for the longest time I thought Wolverine was Australian.
Well, the first time I saw him with the Australian accent was he actually showed up on the Spider-Man and the Super Friends.
Oh, nice.
That's where he showed up, and it was like, yeah, they like one episode. There was like a two-part crossover with the X-Men, and yeah, out of nowhere, Wolverine. I mean, at the time I was reading the comics, I was like, oh, Wolverine Australia.
Yeah.
It's like super Canadian.
Yeah, it's not until like I really got into the comics that I was just like, oh, he's Canadian. For the longest time, I thought he was Australian.
It's just so strange.
And who would have thought, like 30 years later,
He's
he was
Australian.
yeah, well, he's an Australian actor is playing a Canadian, but also he becomes like the most famous of the X-Men. Poor Cyclops.
I remember I read my brother's comics, so we had like he had the late 70s, early 80s. So like it kind of ended right at like the Mutant Massacre. That era.
Face.
It's MODOK.
That's awesome.
But and I remember some of the letters back when comics had letters,
Yeah,
and people were like, "Boy, Wolverine sucks. We hate him."
yeah.
Little did they know that flash of the pan character,
Yeah.
the most bankable character for several years running.
Well, it's not super exciting, guys, but I did get to base most of the purples and, finish his mop top. A little bit of cross hatching and black lining and all that good stuff.
Great work on that hair. Really cool.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, it's getting to be that time, the end of the stream time. So thank you very much for joining us, and we will be back. I won't be here next week, but we might have someone to fill in. I'll be doing my Christmas vacation a little early. So until then, ta-ta.
Bye.
Goodbye. Goodbye now.